A flower grows freely without any human intervention. These are wildflowers. So today we are going to learn different varieties of wildflower, and all these flowers are in yellow color. I am using 300 GSM watercolor sheet and size 6 round brush. You can use little smaller than this one. This is size 0 round brush from the miniature set. But I think round brush having size of 6 and 8 is totally fine for today's video. So let's start with the first flower. I'm going to use different shades of yellow for the flower and different shades of the green for the stems and leaves. All these flowers are pretty much similar with each other, with little variation in the stem and leaf structure and in the composition of flower as well. So you can create a stem, you can create a curve or a straight line for the stem, it's totally fine, and then divide it into two sections like this. So it is totally up to you how you like to compose it, but I'm keeping it something like this. And then you can create small leaves around the stem towards the upward direction. So we have two varieties of leaves in this one. One is smaller and one is little bigger like this. So I'm applying pressure into my brush and moving my brush in that direction wherein I want my leaf perspective. So I have created two bigger leaves, few smaller leaves and two stems, and in these two stems we are going to create our flower. But before that I am dividing it into multiple substems like this. So we have created multiple curves around the tip of the stem in a round shape, and I'm doing the same thing for the second one as well, but this one is the smallest compared to the main flower. Now this is the basic structure for the stems and the leaves. Now when it comes to the flower, I'm using lemon yellow color and I'm just tapping my brush around each and every smaller stem that we have to create flowers. As you can see, these flowers are not having a defined structure in it. I'm just putting some random pattern around it to make it look like these are the flowers. Again, you can use any color, whatever you like. I'm using yellow color for almost all the flowers, having different shades of yellow in it. Now you can add a little bit of blue color or dark green color around the leaves. Do some extra shading and detailing, and we are done with the first one. Now keep this structure in mind and you can create multiple other structure based on this particular concept. So for the second one, I'm creating again a stem. This one is pretty much straight. And then I'm dividing it into multiple vines, left and right, to create leaves. This is more towards the blue side, so I have mixed little bit of green in the blue. You can use a smaller brush as well if you're not comfortable doing all these things with the help of bigger brush. So when you use smaller brush, it is quite easy to create some fine structure like this. But I like to do all these things with the help of bigger brush itself. So I usually like to use tip of my brush to do some fine elements like this. Although you can use a smaller brush and create multiple leaves around the sub stems that we have. So basically we have a leaf having group of multiple smaller leaves in it. And I'm going to repeat the same thing for all the sub stems that we have, except the top three. So those three are basically for the flowers. So these are my leaves. And for the flowers, again I'm going to divide it into multiple substem, but this time keeping the substem very small in size. So basically we are repeating the same thing for the flower what we did in the first one, but in this one we have created group of small flowers like this. Then once you're done with the basic structure, you can add flower. This time I'm using Indian yellow and little bit of orange you can use. Again I'm putting some random pattern to create flowers. So as you can see, the first flower and the second one is almost similar but very different from each other because of the composition, leaf structure, and we have created similar kind of flower but having different pattern in it. You can add little bit of orange color as I have mentioned earlier, and something like this you can do. Now let's move to the third one. So for the third one, again create a stem. You can keep these stems in any direction. I'm using lemon yellow color, so I have mixed green and yellow together, more towards the green. So this is basically a sap green, and then I'm creating one stroke leaves like this. Again I'm pushing my brush until what thickness I want for my leaves, and then releasing slowly to get a pointed end. I'm repeating the same thing for both the stems that we have. So these are the basic leaf structure for this particular flower. For the flower petals, this time I want to define my flower a little bit so that you can see the flower structure and petals clearly. But these are very small in size, so I'm using tip of my brush to create these small flowers having 4 to 5 petals, and I'm creating group of these flowers. So basically I have 3 groups of flower here. I can see the flower petals, and then with the help of red color create the center part of the flower. Although these flowers are very small, so you can roughly do these things, but as compared to the first two, in the third one we can see the petals clearly. Now fourth one is also similar to the first and the second one, but again little variation in everything. So divide your main stems into multiple substem, and then you can divide substem into multiple substems as well. At the tip of the stem, you can divide your stems into multiple structure like this, creating a round kind of structure, and then each substem has multiple substems in it. This is more like dandelions. You can create a smaller version of this in the side to create smaller flowers. So basically I am repeating the same thing. I have divided my substem into multiple substems like we did in the second one. So once done with this particular structure, you can add leaves. This time I am adding 2 strokes leaves having different direction in it. You can also create one stroke as well. So basically I'm randomly creating these leaves in between, few smaller, few bigger, few with double stroke. And for the flower, again we are going to do some random pattern because these are very small flowers. Now add this yellow color around your flower structure to create flowers. You can use any color whatever you like, but I want to keep all these things in the yellow color, that's why I'm using it. You can also mix little bit of your orange and red also. Now basically you need to repeat the same thing for all these stems that we have. You can keep the substem little smaller, little bigger, and you can create something like this. Now if you compare the first two, this one and in fact the third one, we have done little variation in the flower structure and creating multiple different patterns with it. Now you can add a little bit of red or orange to get some variation in the color, but the yellow is dominant. Now let's move to the fifth one. So again for the fifth one I'm using blue color, little hint of green in it, creating the middle stem, then substem. And then you can create leaves in a group having one stroke leaves in it. So this is single leaves having multiple leaves in it. And then you can create few bigger leaves as well. All these flowers are wildflowers. So beauty of the wildflower is you don't have to define anything specific. You can do anything by your own. I think I need to correct leaves for this particular one, so I'm adding little bigger with the help of bigger brush. As I have already mentioned, I'm more comfortable using bigger brush for the smaller elements as well. Okay, so this much is enough. I think I'm more comfortable with this particular structure. Now let's concentrate on the flower. So this time I'm creating bigger petals and bigger flowers, but the composition of flower is very simple. So I'm creating 4 to 5 petals again, having bigger flowers and bigger petals, but again all these flowers are in group. So I have divided my main stems into multiple substem, and around each stems I'm creating group of flowers having bigger flowers in it. So we can see the petals clearly, we can see the flowers clearly, and then you can create the center part of the flower, the ovary of the flower. So I'm doing it with the help of black color. You can use whatever color you like. This time I'm using cadmium yellow. You can use whatever color you like. So more defined flowers and leaves for this particular one. Now let's cover last one. So this one is also very simple. So again you need to create something like this. Stem, substem, multiple substems. And then you can start creating flower petals around these stems. So this time basically I'm doing it literally anywhere, and the tip of the stems, in between the stems, like this. This time my petals are a little longer but smaller in size again. And likewise you can create multiple other wildflowers. You can think by your own, you can use your own imagination to do all these things. And for this particular one I'm not doing much for the leaves. I'm keeping the leaves very simple. So I'm going to add a few strings of green to make it look like these are the leaves. I have also used little bit of orange for the flowers and green as well at the base of each flower groups. And we are done with today's video. So I'm hoping this video is helpful for you guys. Please do let me know if you have any kind of feedback for me. And thank you so much for watching my videos. See you guys in the next video.